cars that have had a lot of problems.
Has Christensen been in recently?
He's in currently. In fact.
Oh, that's all right then. I feel better already. I've just seen that his coming in lap, however, was a very slow one.
4:18. It's not. No, that's a.
That was very slow.
That must be an out lap. That's yeah, it is, because otherwise it would say out in the first column.
Yeah.
So it's the first. That is the lap, including the stop with the fuel and going out. So your in lap only takes you to the line, which is before any of the pits.
Yeah.
So the out lap is actually the slow one of the two. Going back out then, 76 is fourth. Patrick Long in the IMSA Matmut Performance Porsche, fourth in the GT2 class. That is currently still being led by the Corvettes. 64 Oliver Gavin in 17th overall and leader in GT2, and 63 Jan Magnussen in 18th overall and second in GT2. 19th overall Richard Leeds, third in GT2. 20th overall Patrick Long, fourth in GT2. And there was a little bit of a bet going on with John Hindhoff, among others, as to whether or not the GT2 winner would be ahead of the GT1 winner. Well, at the moment, the top 5 cars in GT2 are ahead of the GT1 leader, and more are queuing up to pass them as well. So I think it's a fairly foregone conclusion. This car now third in GT1 still. Roman Grosjean at the wheel of the Maytech Ford, and that is 7-8 laps off the class lead as it comes in for what seems like a fairly regular pit stop. 3 green lights means, like the green backing on the number, that it's GT1. The 3 lights mean that it is third in its class.
Little concern being shown here at the sole surviving GT40. I'm not quite sure what the concern is. The car may be about to return, but nothing seems to have happened. And I think there's a little bit of concern about that car. I suspect I can see a lot of water around, and I don't like it when I can see a lot of water around. I suspect that car may have a problem. Shut it all down, living in hope that it's going to get away, but nothing's happening. So, if at first you don't succeed, no, that doesn't look too good to me. You can all look at it and muse and say, what's happening, I can't understand it, but whatever it is, it's not going far right now. Dotterer currently the quickest of the Audis in the 323s, which is about as quick as Audis go, and looking as if he's endeavouring every which way but to lose any time. And there is GT40 making its way into the garage, which I thought it was going to do actually about a couple of 3 minutes ago, but they had other looks at it. This is the car that was damaged during the first practice on Wednesday. For those of you who weren't here, he went off backwards at a fair velocity, and there was a bit of welding went on at the back. Reminds me of the story that we heard actually here from one of the American teams about the rain that we had during the course of qualifying, and as to whether or not the team should or the team shouldn't go out. And somebody said, well, is the team going to go out? And the guy in charge says, no, I know how to weld. Think about that. I thought it was very good. I like droll things like that. So, Nicolas Manassian is obviously anxious to hang on with that Peugeot to the lead, which he has, and is the only one of that team that hasn't had some sort of delay. It's interesting that Alexander Wurz up to 4th place now at the wheel of the car, the number 1 car, still lapping very quickly, still lapping in 325s, but doesn't seemingly be able to turn in some of the times that he was turning in yesterday, and that is of course now in 4th place. 5th place is the Christensen car. The Christensen car was the unfortunate benefactor is not the right word. What's the opposite of a victim of the pace car situation that occurred quite early on? We had some discussion about that, and it obviously is a problem that I'm sure that both Le Mans and everybody else wants to solve. It's difficult because the idea of a pace car is much more obviously able to control a race pace than if you just leave drivers to run under a yellow flag, because what some people think is fast ain't fast, or what some people think is slow is far from slow. So you put a pace car out and that should regularize it, but on long circuits such as this it does cause problems, and if you have more than one pace car it obviously causes even more problems, because spread out around the circuit time can be lost, and then if you've got the regulatory situation from the point of view of pit stops, that only adds to it. What the answer is, I don't know. Answers on a postcard, please, to the Automobile Club of the West. Right, number 8 in. This is Lotterer. This is the car that had been turning in some very quick laps and is no doubt about to go out again and turn in more quick laps, and it does, and keeps the pressure on very well. Was a concern, I think, to all of us when we realised very suddenly that the new Peugeot engine had just that little edge that was allowing them to, on average, be a couple of 3 seconds faster. But it has been a bit of a surprise to find out that in spite of that, and in spite of having that extra little bit in hand, they have not had perhaps the durability that the Audis have shown. There were some fairly major modifications to the Audis during the break between practice 1 and practice 2, Wednesday, Thursday, and I believe that there were further modifications made, in fact, right the way up to today, or rather yesterday, when we were starting here. Whichever way it went, it certainly has paid off a bit. The Aston still in the top 10. Somebody said to me before I came out to this little adventure in France, would they stay in the top 10? And I didn't see any reason why they shouldn't. I didn't think they were going to go any higher, however, today, because I could see with all the Peugeots and with the Audis that the reliability factor was probably going to be one that the Diesels had got in hand now, because both of these cars are pretty well developed, and the Astons just haven't got the outright pace. But that's life. If they're still with us, and I mention this for their benefit, some of the spectators that have come from my part of the world, in Worcestershire, where I originally lived, that always come and see me when I came to Le Mans. I've been doing now for some years. The Rose brothers couldn't be with us this year, and my felicitations to them, because I know that it was a business problem that arose at the last minute that prevented them from coming. Aston Martin DB9 in the screen on that. We're coming up towards the end of... No, we've just passed the other hour, so in fact we're well into the second half of the race now, and it's still pretty wide open as far as I can see. I think there's still excitement to come, and of course there's light to come in not very much longer time, and we are going to be seeing this battle going on right to the very end of this one, I am quite sure. Join us again shortly after the break. Welcome back to Le Mans. Welcome back to what is the last, I suppose, couple of hours of dark. It's going to start to get light in about an hour and a half, 2 hours time, and we shall then see whether or not the rigours of the morning are going to affect what has been a fascinating race. It's no good saying to any of you sitting at home that have stayed up to listen to us that this has been a riveting race from the point of view of a wheel-to-wheel battle. It hasn't. But it's been a riveting race from the point of view of, it's almost like a game of poker, because it's been going on right the way from the very start of practice, qualifying, into the race itself. It is clear, to reiterate what we've said already, the actual pace of Peugeot, that the action was with Audi, and they could and did force that pace. We've now got Manassian in 323s. Rockenfeller is back at the wheel of the leading Audi 324. So there's a second or so between them. And then we've got Alexander Wurz, who, that's a remarkable recovery. That car really has had an awful lot to do. He's still 4 laps as it looks at the moment. It's probably nearer 3 off the lead, but it's a really good comeback, as is the Christensen one. I'm not quite sure. I presume it's Christensen driving that car at the moment. I didn't check actually to see, so that just goes to show how ignorant and stupid I can be.
No, it certainly looks like Tom.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, he's dropped back down to 5th place as the pit stops have cycled around. He's made his stop, so now Wurz has gone back up to 4th.
Yeah.
So there can't be more than 30 or 40 seconds in either direction between the two of them. See Hideki Noda receiving last minute instructions before he gets shuffled back into the car for the middle of the night in Crucial Motorsport.
It only wants that weather that everybody said was going to be a bit iffy in the morning, and I don't think it is actually. I personally think that this is going to be all right until probably the very end of the race. I think that's what might get a surprise.
Rain now would be a royal pain in the jacks.
It would be a pain in the neck, wouldn't it?
Definitely. And it is, let's not forget, 4:15 in the morning across Central Europe, 3:15 in the UK. Probably means it's almost lunchtime somewhere. I've just had a little Lion Bar break. Yummity yum yum yum. About the only thing I can eat at the moment, and going down quite nicely. But interesting that only 3 cars in the top half dozen, all the expected front-running diesel cars, have had no major dramas, and that is our leader Nick Minassian's number 2 Peugeot, and then the 2 Audis that are giving chase relentlessly still. Mike Rockenfeller's 9 car at the moment, Audi Lotto currently in the 8 car, and behind them Alexander Wurz 1. He's in 4th place in that Peugeot that climbed up the order and took the lead when Alison Davison was at the wheel of it, and then very quickly lost it again. Well, not that quickly, I suppose, within an hour. Lost it again because they had an electrical problem with the car, which Olivier Canel diagnosed as a starter motor problem, but then said we need to work on it because we have to have lights on, which isn't normally a starter motor sort of problem. It's a more of an electrical leaking out of somewhere else sort of a problem. Jonathan Kennard out and Hideki Noda in while we're talking about it, into the P2 car as we were there. That is 28th overall, 1, 2, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the P2 class.
He sort of appeared at a trot from the back of the pits, didn't he? That's quite remarkable. He wasn't standing there booted and suited. He just sort of ran in and leapt in the car.
No. We saw him being chatted to a moment or 2 ago, but when Jonathan got out, he legged it in. He just got to be standing behind the line before the car comes in. Jonathan Kennard, like Sam Hancock, another former commentating colleague of mine, who very quickly decided that sitting next to me whiffling on was a very bad way of spending a life, and went out and got himself a proper drive instead. So delighted to see both Jonathan Kennard and Sam Hancock in good drives here, and long may they continue into the morning. The KSM Crucial Motorsport car, Jonathan is sharing with Hideki Noda and Jean de Portales, as meanwhile our race leader is on pit road, and this is flurry of pit stops time. That is trademarked, incidentally. Flurry of pit stops. Nick Minassian, our race leader, is in for stop 17. In at the same time, 007 Harold Primat and 15 Christian Bakkerud. They are the 007 Lola Aston Martin, the Gulf coloured car, one of the pair. That's in 7th, its teammate in 8th, and 9th place Christian Bakkerud. Bakkerud's gone already up the road ahead of Nick Minassian, as in front of him slots in Loic Duval in the number 4 Peugeot, which is 4 laps down, and just unlapped itself there. It's Peugeot number 4. It just unlapped itself to be 3 laps and about 3.5 minutes down. It might well have done. Whether it stays in front, of course, an entirely different thing. And behind it, I'm going to say that's the RML car. Doesn't seem to have quite enough clue on.
Quite a lot. But, quite a bit going on there at the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, we see. Now, Paul Truswell has this theory that regular Radio Le Mans listeners will certainly know that during the night, and particularly during the wet, dark night, as if there is any other kind of night. There is other kind of night here at Le Mans. There is not very dark night, but there is wet, dark night particularly. And Truswell's theory, or that's what it is that cars are magnetically attracted to each other in the dark and the wet. And so you get clumps of cars all circulating at vaguely the same speed. Obviously, there's no scientific basis for it. It is arrant nonsense. But despite the fact that there is no scientific basis for it, and it is arrant nonsense, you look at it, and yes, there are always clumps of cars instead of just a sort of a long string of them.
It's a computer specialist extension of Archimedes' principle.
It Gubbins is what it is, but it is a humorous, in the middle of the night, filling out time kind of a theory. Car number 28, again, proving recalcitrant. This is Ralph Maitrey at the wheel at the moment, the McGann Cup expert, as he gets pushed back into the garage. And this, of course, was entry number 56, which is why I haven't got it written down anywhere on my super duper bits of entry list. This is the one he shares with Marc Rostan and Pierre Bruno. Pierre Bruno's car receiving. It was the last reserve on the list, and the ACO, having built a new pit specially for next year, magically managed to get a French entry in for this year as well. Hooray.
How surprising.
Very little surprises you about the French and Le Mans, which means everything always surprises you about the French Le Mans, but it is really no surprise that you're surprised. So Maitrey is out there working under the nose there. So that suggests either lights or brakes, usually. Usually they're trying to get a fast fit connector back in. You rotter. Thank you. No, in fact, that they were trying to get the fast fit connector off. Yes, it wasn't coming off, so they could get the nose off, and now they're into the foot box, and the pedal box there suggests pedals, which suggests brake and or clutch. You normally, when you get the crash structure off the front there, see 3 reservoirs, 2 for the brakes and 1 for the clutch. And they are now going to take the crash structure off. So I'm suggesting we've got a driver there who's not wildly happy with the long brake pedal. And at these speeds, I'm not sure I'd be wildly happy with the long brake pedal either.
Well, it's either that or the front suspension he's unhappy with. I'm not quite sure which.
I think they'd be wobbling it and bouncing it to start with. I'm sensing it's something more in the guts of the machinery, and that tends to be there right in front of your feet, things what your feet stand on. We were just looking at 89, the Hankook Ferrari. That is still climbing its way up the order. It is now in 5th place in the GT2 class, having passed the Ferrari of Tony Vielander and left that significantly behind. Chasing Pat Long's car, and it is, I suppose, 3 minutes behind the 76 Porsche, which is the IMSA Matmut car, so there may be battle joined there afore long. Top 3 in the GT2 class, still the Corvettes. Oliver Gavin leads Jan Magnussen, in pit road. Not in front of us, I don't hear it rumbling. Come on, Jan, you're shown by timing and scoring as being on pit road, and yet I can't see him or hear him, and there are no crew out, so is it in the garage? It is not, Neville. No. 6, okay. Now, this is an entertaining glitch, because timing and scoring is showing Jan Magnussen on pit road, very definitely, and he's not on pit road in front of us, which we are directly across from the Corvette pits, all 4 of them, right in front of our lovely box, demarcated by its flag of St. George, and yet there are no crew out on the apron. There is no car out on the apron, no tyres on the apron, no sign of preparation, yet timing and scoring show him still as being in the pits and not having completed a pit stop and made a time for it, yet also in the Sector 1 column showing that he started his outlap. So a degree of glitchage going on there on the timing and scoring system. See,
Yeah, either way.
How late in the night is it now where I'm describing in quite finite detail how wrong the timing and scoring system is going? That is quite late in the night.
Yes, it's got to be.
Who else is claimed to be on pit road? Well, the J-Lock Lamborghini probably still is. Haven't seen a picture of it for a very long while. Lamborghini fanciers. I imagine you've all probably nodded off by now. Paul Jason's car now slipped to the bottom of the moving pile because it's not moving. It is now shown as 39th. They haven't given up. They are. Well, the nose of the car is still sticking out in the garage, and I still see bodies moving. I'm sort of looking around the corner. No, they are still moving properly. As this is Johnny Kane. It is Kane J. See, there you go. Another one who's decided that sitting in a commentary box with me while occasionally entertaining certainly isn't a proper way of earning a living, and is continuing to hang on to a very sensible drive. And doing a damn fine job as well. This is our LMP2. Sorry if I'm getting all the letters wrong, you will forgive me because you know better. LMP2 leading car he's awaiting. Nick Leventis coming in at the end of his double stint. Still has the lead of the class. 1 lap ahead of the other Acura chassis, which is currently driven by marvellous Marco Werner. So when Leventis gets in to the pits, he will hand over to Johnny Kane. I expect that battle, really, there's no reason why that's not to continue all the way to the end of the race.
That looks interesting, doesn't it?
Shouldn't be in that. The Hankook Porsche I thought had just left.
No,
it's just coming in.
And there's a bit of blue.
Well, that's not unsurprising because of the temperature of the engines, but is this... Had he just gone in, or were we just talk? No, we just saw him in shot.
Yeah, he just got into shot, but he was coming in. The seemingly seemed a bit. Probably it was just the camera angle that led us to believe he was going slower than perhaps he was actually going.
No, I didn't think he had a problem. We just saw a long shot of him on the track, in which I just thinking, we've just been talking about him.
Yeah.
Has he just come back in again? But no. In fact, this is only pit stop number 13 for him, where the GT2 leaders have done 13, 14, 13 and 12 for Patrick Long's Porsche, respectively. So Patrick Long either owes somebody a pit stop or is going to benefit from that. Out goes Alan Simonson for Tis He. He's in 5th place. Actually, it was 2 minutes ago when we talked about him last. On pit road, incidentally, now, Mr. Director, is the number 25 car, which, as any fool know, is the RML entry. Andy Wallace, of this parish, former winner for Jaguar. Now, the door's open, there doesn't seem to be much AWOL getting outness going on. Oh, hang on, a mat's being moved. It's a tyre receiving mat. Some very shiny new tyres going on. You're not watching this, I am. So should we talk about what's on the screen? Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th still in the LMP2 class. Had a spate of really annoying little incidents on that RML car, still in the daylight hours and into the early evening, which robbed it of a chance to be running in 3rd place. And I suppose annoying little incidents you could definitely say are the case for the number 4 car. Olivier Panis getting ready to take over Peugeot number 4 from Loic Duval. That car was in 2nd place, looking really strong and catching the leader when it had its problems, which, did I mention? I did find out left rear suspension rebuild was going on there while they were trying to hide it all from us, like it makes a difference. Yeah. And that car is in 6th position. Into the pits is Nick Leventis, and in the pits currently, on the other page of my monitor, is the Pescarolo. I failed to turn my eyes to the timing from the timing screen in time to find out. Is it Nicolet who was at the wheel, having taken over from Richard Jacques Nicolet? Anyway, he's gone. So too is the 78 BMW, which still has Uwe Altzen at the wheel. A triple stint, I think, coming up for Mr. Altzen, and why not? Out goes the racing box Lola. Okay, Nick Leventis shown us on pit road by a red box in the left-hand column. Can't see him. He ain't in front of us. Oh, he's down there near the Peugeot end. There is the Peugeot in the number 4 car. Loic Duval handing over to Olivier Panis. And when these guys have finished doing their work, we will take a quick pause, which I think will allow Neville to raid the chocky box.
Yes.
Definitely. It's that sort of time of day. And in fact, in about half an hour or 40 minutes, we are going to have the rather annoying feature of the sun coming in and warming us up. LMP2 leader leaves. That's not him neither. That's our 4th placed Peugeot. Car number 1, Alexander Wurz. As I said, you can have tear-off strips on your lights as well as your windscreen, and those are being torn off as well. So Peugeot polishing and then tearing off the tear-offs. He goes back out with no dramas, and he goes back out faster than the number 4 car. This is taking a long while.
There is drama there, isn't there?
Well, no, it's a full stop, including tyres, but they finally get him going. Off he goes. Debrief in the Oreca Peugeot garage for Loic Duval, who's just brought in car number 4. That's him right in the centre of your screen. There he is. And of course that car in 2nd place before its suspension rebuild delay, and he's got a nice solid stint in that car as well. Now handed over to Olivier Panis, and really disappointed for Hugues de Schonach's team. They were looking very strong indeed, certainly ready, if the very worst came to the worst, to back up the lead Peugeot, and if things played slightly better for them, to overhaul the lead Peugeot and to win the race. However, lot of water still to flow under that particular bridge. Slow car being notified on track number 40, Kiefel ASM car of Miguel Amaral, Olivier Pla and Warren Hughes, and that is 3rd, 4th in the LMP2 class at the moment, with Olivier Pla behind the wheel. Let's hope that it's not a major drama for them. Ginetta Zytek, number 41 crew, which is 6th in the LMP2 class, is getting ready for them, for their stop. Gary Challenden getting ready to come in, and Karim Oj getting ready to go out. Well, middle of the night, trouble strikes for some, but for others, routine service, and for the teams, really vital time to get a bit of rest. All these guys have been up since at least 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, working hard all week long. It really is a very, very long week. Even if everything goes right, the days are very long indeed. And now, with just 10 hours and a half of the race remaining, eyes are starting to get a little heavy. I have to say, I've always found that when the daylight arrives is when you really start to get those gritty eyes and feel very sleepy and very flushed. But then I'm not down there in the pit lane anymore with lots of brake dust in the eyes and in the hair, so it probably makes a bit of a difference. So we're getting a couple of hourly roundups. There aren't too many TV booths up here, and yet, pardon, they seem to go by us all the time without bothering to leave us an awful lot of information. So we've now got the full hourly update after 13 hours, where Peugeot were 1st, Audi 2nd and 3rd, Peugeot 4th, Audi 5th and Peugeot in 6th position. And that is much the way it remains after 13 and a half hours then, with Peugeot not so much with a stranglehold on the race, but at least with half a grasp on the race. This is our GT1 leader we're looking at now, with the blue lights on the side, not at the front. Green lights rather on the side, not at the front. I might be able to tell you where they are, but I can't even tell you what colour they are. That's Julien Canal still at the wheel of that car, and the Kiefel ASM car is in. So Olivier Pla has got it back into the pits, even though it was creeping along slowly. And the degree with which they're looking at the left rear corner and the amount of wobblage going on suggests to me that he came in with a vibration, and the fact that they're jacking it right up in the air and they'll get the trestles under suggests that this is not going to be a moment of brief action. In fact, so much so that somebody's decided they're going to start polishing the bodywork. It's going to be a long job at the back, so we'll make the front look nice and shiny. Well, rear cover comes off, and if you come in slowly and they start wobbling things at the back, there's a little bit of smoke there at the back as well. I wonder whether that's a misting of oil or something, or whether it's just from brakes or tyres that have got too hot. Change of crew for 78. BMW ejecting Uwe Altzen and taking on, if I'm not mistaken, a Jörg Müller, who is shown as Monegasque.
No way.
Jörg Müller from Aachen in Germany, the former home of Charlemagne, Charles the Great. I think not. I don't think Jörg Müller has ever in his life even remotely wanted to be, well, not wanted to be Monegasque, but been Monegasque. Anyway, he ain't. He's German as German.
As German can be.
Well, yeah, the Bavarians would argue that actually, since he comes from Aachen, he's practically French. And of course, this is a Bavarian outfit, very much, with Schnitzer and BMW. But Jörg Müller is very definitely not a Monegasque. He is very definitely a German. Notice also, incidentally, I do apologise that, I don't remember who told me. Somebody complained that somebody's dad had said, they're not Belgian, they're Dutch. And I said, well, we don't do the grabs, unfortunately. They come from the organisers. So somebody who is Dutch is down as Belgian. I'm not sure who. That was an interesting aside, wasn't it? Back to the plot.
I thought Aachen was on the Belgian border as well, not the French.
It is. Well, it is on the. Yes, it is on the Belgian border.
There you are, you see.
Yes. Eric van der Poel is out of the Krone Racing Risi Competizione Ferrari. And don't know who's getting in yet. It hasn't decided. Number 24 Pescarello Oak Racing car still in the garage as the number 41 car finally arrives. Gary Challenden's got out. Karimo J gets in to the Bruichladdich Ginetta Zytek. And that car now on page 1 of the timing screen again. That means it's up into the top 20 now as the second placed Audi comes onto pit road. And from the camera view there, you can see how much oil film and dirt and muck gets distributed onto a camera lens, and obviously thereby onto a driver's visor and onto the headlights and all the other things that it gets distributed onto at night. And that's why tear-offs on visors and cleaning of lights, and particularly windscreens for the closed coupes, is so important, because particularly with the rising of the sun coming in the next hour or so, it comes up obviously very low because it comes up from the horizon, but you do get an awful lot of points on the circuit where you are heading directly east and straight into the sun. And a nice smeary windscreen, as any driver knows, is an absolute recipe for disaster when you're heading into the sun. So cleanliness next to godliness at Le Mans, as well as in the Irish dictionary. Car number 18 going slowly. Now that's entertaining. Do we have car number 18?
I don't know, but I tell you what, Roggenfeller isn't half moving.
Hang on a minute. On our timing screen, there, is it my eyes? Slow car 18. And on my entry list, it goes 14, 15, 19. Yes. Do we have a car 18?
I don't think we have a car 18.
Right, is it 78? And now, process of elimination, is it 28? There's no 28. No. There's no 78. 81. No, that's retired. That was the champion.
Point 18.
No.
No, not car 18.
It would say
point
at
18.
Post.
Well, that's what I would have thought, but since we don't have an 18.
Well, they've given up and taken it off the screen anyway, so
it feels much better.
Shall we worry about that? Shall we? Beggary. Out of the pit lane then comes. I'm losing track now. I did see who that was, and it completely failed to register. Was that number 40 Kiefel ASM car, or was it? It wasn't the number 40 Kiefel ASM car. It was the number 6 Orica with Andy Merrick now at the wheel. GT1 leaders getting ready for a driver change, and of course that means full service, so clean set of tyres, new set of tyres, indeed fresh set of tyres.
Fresh set of overalls too.
Roland Berville, yeah, he looks relatively puckered, doesn't he? Relatively chipper. Getting suited and booted. Of course, in the olden days, drivers would have worn their dinner jacket and bow tie all the way through, or they would have worn their race suit or overalls or whatever all the way through. Nowadays, you bring several sets, and if you're really good, you've got a washing machine and a tumble dryer to make sure they're nice and clean, not just for the drivers, but for the pit crew and the mechanics and everybody else, so that you're not sweltering in your own filth for umpteen hours on end.
It's totally different, you know. I mean, it used to be sort of 2 sets of overalls, so if one got wet, you had to dry it and probably put the other set on. And also the catering arrangements, and I'm talking here about the works teams largely, were run by the drivers' wives. Totally different matter altogether. So any of this business about sort of going off and feeding commentators and the like, which is what they do today. Didn't feed me, actually, as it so happened. That's neither did they, because I didn't go. As well as the team and as well as the mechanics, that didn't happen.
You see, now the other side of that is that once it got to darkness, any commentator would have cleared off to a very nice restaurant, had a fine slap-up meal, gone to sleep for a good 8 hours and potted back sometime in the morning when either the radio were interested or, well, in latter years there were actually some television pictures.
Well, yes, but I'm thinking in the days of when I sort of used to listen as a boy to Ray Baxter and
I guarantee he wasn't on at 3 in the morning on the home service.
He was on about midnight though, quite early in the morning and that sort of thing.
Yes, but of course he will have had a jolly fine dinner before he did his midnight.
Splendid dinner, yes. Enjoyed a splendid dinner.
And a good night's sleep. But then, of course, you know, there are almost as many people awake on their sofas as there are people in the commentary booth, so it is our duty to finally continue. Dino Capello heads back out in car number 7. Christensen walking off into the garage. I don't know quite exactly what the frame of the mind of the Audi drivers was at the beginning of the race, but I'm willing to bet that they are feeling more belligerent and more get up and go get them now, and particularly the drivers of the 7 car. I mean, without question, they're not going to win the race. That much is patently obvious. However, their teammates in car 8 and car 9 might well have something to say about this race before it's all over. There's only a lap between the lead Peugeot and the 2 Audis that chase it. Christensen, well, he's hardly looking like a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders. All right, this time it's not for him. However, Audi might, just might, in the next 10 hours, pull something out of the fire. And Wolfgang Ulrich and Ralf Juttner there on the extreme right of the picture, engineering director and the sport boss of Audi, respectively. Engineering director Ralf Juttner, one of the tallest people in the pit lane, and I can say that from a vantage point of quite some altitude. And also one of the nicest. Wolfgang Ulrich, well, he's not normally as crabby as he was earlier. Normally a lot more laid back, and they do look a lot more laid back now. In is the number 97 BMS Scuderia Italia Porsche. That's now in 25th overall, and still not 6th, 7th place in the GT2 class, behind Tony Vilander and Alan Simonson in their respective Ferraris. So still struggling to get this thing to do a real kind of pace. And I only think about looking at its lap times when I see it in a pit lane, and I forget then in the rest of the time I'll have to try and have a look at what sort of lap times it's turning. Cars in front of it are doing 4.2s and 4.8s. In lap was a 4.14. It doesn't seem like he would be that far away.
I would imagine that the 322.9 that we are seeing for Lotterer must be fairly close to the fastest lap we've had at any time from any Audi.
It's certainly the fastest Audi time. We've had 3:21.9 from Anthony Davidson, and that I'm pretty sure is the fastest Peugeot time. But yes, it's just clicked up as the fastest lap for that car, and I'm absolutely certain that it's the fastest Audi lap we've had.
Yeah, I think it was.
And that was a clear one as well, 3:22.4. He's now done a 3:24.1, so caught a bit of traffic on this very last lap. But nonetheless, that is a very quick little piggy still, that Audi. And as ever with Audi, they don't stop working. They don't just say, right, it's as fast as it's going to drive the wheels off it. They have tweaked and turned and fiddled undoubtedly with it in several different ways that I'm probably not privy to over the course of the race. And as a result, Andre Lotterer is stonking along. In fact, he's lapping quicker than the race leader. Race leader can afford not to lap so quickly, certainly until the Audi gets right up his exhaust, and then he can hold him up and fight him off for a bit if he so wishes. Jeroen Bleekemolen out of the Spiker. Tommy Coronel was in it beforehand, which now should mean that, Mr. De, I think it is Peter Dumbreck at the wheel of the car now.
That's a well-known flyer, isn't it?
Peter Dumbreck at the wheel of the car now.
Yeah. Did Mr. Dumbreck?
Oh, sorry, yes. No, sorry, I was thinking of flyer as in a handout for a concert or something. No. Well, I wonder how UB40 went down tonight. I expect they went down very well. They are generally
I had a
very
report
successful.
from Toby Gunter, who'd been out to view them.
Radio.
And said they were very good.
I bet they were.
Yeah.
The Spiker, as in comes the Saleen. This is car number 50, our GT1 leader, now outside the top 20 in 22nd place behind 4 of the top GT2 cars. And that ain't going to change. In the next 10 hours, it is only going to be overtaken by more GT2 cars. It is a quick car, make no mistake, but the Saleen is definitely at the end of its life. Never really quite lived up to its promise, I don't think. A couple of teams ran it successfully in the FIA GT Championship, but otherwise, particularly in the endurance races, Sebring, Le Mans and all of those, really only flattered to deceive. I think possibly some of the best run cars. Labre have had a turn with it here, but Oreca certainly had a good effort at running one, and if you can't run one properly with Oreca, it's obviously not a car that's easily run. At the moment, it's in what would seem to be its last Le Mans race. Not just that car, but the Saleen as a whole. Julien Canal then leaves the pit lane, still in 22nd place, and leading in the GT1 class by 3 laps from Xavier Massa in the Corvette.
We're sitting aboard right now, one of the Cruisers on the straight, and it's the car number 2, Ignatian car, which is still lapping a little bit slower than the second place car at the moment, matter of 4 seconds on the previous lap, as it so happens. The Audi is now in 2nd and 3rd place, the Lotterer car number 8, the Rockefeller car number 9. It does need something, perhaps, to make life a little bit easier if they're going to put some pressure on Ignatian, but since every other car in the Peugeot bag of tricks has had problems of one sort or another, and that one hasn't, it goes to really prove that the harder you drive it, the better it goes, doesn't it?
Well, it can be, and they just seem to have avoided the dramas that have befallen the other cars, electrical problems, suspension breakages, accidents, and those sorts of things have delayed 3 of our front-running diesel engine cars. We were just looking at Jan Magnussen in Corvette number 63, second in the GT2 class, behind his own teammate Oliver Gavin, who's taken over recently from Olivier Beretta, was in front, in fact, in that car. And meanwhile, in a different Corvette and in a different class, in a different Corvette garage from a different class, we are waiting now for the arrival of car number 73 or 72. Both of them still running for Alfa Aventure, and that's why they like these Corvettes, because they know how to run them and they go a decent way without stopping. Stefan Gregoire, Jérôme Paulicon, David Hart in 72, Julien Jus, Xavier Massa and Patrice Goulart in 73 car. Kiefel ASM's car is still sitting in the garage, and that's a really sorry sight, I'm afraid. Car number 40, multiple race winner in LMP2, dropping down the order, still stationary. It's now gone 3 laps behind Tommy Erdos in the RML car, which has moved up to 4th. It is, however, still 8 laps ahead of 6th place in LMP2, which is the Ginetta of Karim Oj. Well, again, I'm afraid, without pit reporters, short of both of us hanging up our headsets and going down there for half an hour to wander about. Not quite sure what it is. What I think we can safely say is it's not at the pointy end, it's at the blunt end.
There's no doubt about that. I should tell you, of course, that the great man for walking up and down the pits, because he has longer legs than anybody else,
Is me.
is Martin. Yeah.
Except that I don't do that anymore. I sit down because I'm too old to be doing it.
Well, if you sit down because you're too old, how do you think I feel?
Instead, the almost equally lanky Bruce Jones charges up and down the pit lane on occasion for Radio Le Mans.
And he's very, very, very enthusiastic.
Very enthusiastic and quite ginger.
Yeah, nice chap.
So, very nice chap indeed. Quite a few cars on pit lane for reasons as so far either A, unexplained, or B, unillustrated. 78 BMW Jürgen Müller says it's on pit lane, so we'll have to have a look at that. 88 Porsche Miro Konopka, that's the gentleman driver's version of the Felbermayr Proton plan. And 75, so this is cars at 29th, 30th and 31st. Lewis Masciels in the 75 Ferrari, the Pro Speed competition car, being very naughty and staying in the garage. So too Olivier Plas's car, so too Paul Drayson's car, on which work still continues. And right, what I need now is Trustwell's binoculars.
I think they're probably doing a total rebuild on Paul Drayson's car.
Do you know,
ready for the next race.
Yeah, you could sort of have forged and machined new pistons for it in this time. They are really having a heck of a job. 88 was just a regular stop. Miro Konopka, I'm assuming, has got out of the car and somebody else got in. I'll find out in a minute. Whose lap times was I going to look at? Because I only remember them. I remember. The 97 Racing Box car's got Timo Scheider at the wheel. It's doing 4:05s, and the best Porsche in the class last lap did a 4:01. Second best did a 4:13. That would seem to be somewhere in the middle. So it looks as though they might have got that BMS Scuderia Italia car a little less unwieldy, a little more to their liking. That's the BMW having a long standard service. You're not looking at it, you're looking instead at our fourth guy in the GT2 class, Patrick Long, currently lying 20th place overall as our GT2 leader comes onto pit road. There he is. GT2 and GT1. GT2 easy to spot, it's yellow. GT1 easy to spot, it's not. Other than that, sound, loud, noisy and roughly the same, look roughly the same, but a world of difference between them.
And back in the garage there,
yes, Patrick Long.
Porsche Patrick Long.
Yes, that's the one that's fourth in the GT2 class.
Yeah, didn't look good, that, did it?
No. Well, we expected to see lots of ferocious battling. We saw quite a lot of that in the first part of the race. And we also expected to see a reasonable amount of, well, not, I suppose, to a degree, mechanical frailty, but we didn't expect to see that in the GT2 class. No. They tend to be a lot better than that. Perhaps in the LMP2 category, mechanical frailty could be slightly taken as read, but in GT2 they tend to stay stitched together reasonably well.
So who's having a crack at now? Oh, well, Lotter has been in and out, which is why his time's a little bit slower.
Yes, he's just leaving the pits now after 3:31 in lap.
Manassian 3:22. Ockenfeller 25.
Yeah, and the gap is opening up now between those two, because Nick Manassian has still only done 17 laps. Lotter 17 stops. Lotter now 19 stops and has dropped to third. Or no, is in third rather, behind Mike Rockenfeller, who's had 18 stops. And J-Lock moment. It's almost like Janice, isn't it?
Yes.
Her Pierre Dieudonné moments. Saw him the other week actually. Still in very, very fine form. Pierre Dieudonné. Yes. In really good form and still. Do you know what? Really disgustingly, a bit like Hugues de Chainat, looks about as youthful as they did in '91 when they won the Le Mans race as the brains of the Orica team that ran the Mazda program, the Charge Mazda 787B that won Le Mans, and still, of course, only the only Japanese car to have won Le Mans, the only Japanese manufacturer to have won Le Mans, despite the amount of money that Toyota and Nissan regularly threw at it. Diminutive Mazda, who in Japanese car making circles is certainly really quite a minnow, the only team to have come up with that success at Le Mans. And
very popular team with me, because at the time we had a sort of a sweep going on, and it was in the days of Screen Sport and the television team, and I actually was sort of a bit busy because my sort of responsibilities were a little bit more than just commentating. And when I came back, they'd all picked all the people they wanted, and they left me with a Mazda. Laughingly said, we've got his money. I won it, didn't I?
Yes. I hope you banked it then, or continued your streak and went to Monte Carlo and put it all on black, because
well, do you know, this
don't often win sweepstakes like that.
This is absolutely true. I took and I think it was a 100 franc note I took home, and I put it on the bedside table. My wife got her fingers on it, and I never saw a penny.
Well, that's only to teach you, Nev, that sweepstake winnings must immediately be spent at the bar. Everyone knows that. That was little baby Jesus just reminding you.
Yeah, well, it wasn't baby Jesus, it was Dorothy.
You know, God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah,
This is doesn't he, though?
I don't call her that normally.
Not when she can hear. God, what do you want now? You see, you do, don't you?
Yeah.
That is the BMW, which has now slipped. No, it is still in 8th place in the GT2 class, not quite slipped into clutches of Miro Konopka's 88 Porsche. Do try and stay with us.
That can't be right. That would be the fastest lap that he's done in the whole. It is the fastest lap that one of the Astons has done at 3:25.
Cool, clear, clean track. Stefan Mucker.
That is remarkable.
Absolutely. 3:25.4.
Yeah. That really is a remarkable, it's a really good lap, that, and I'm delighted because those cars do sound absolutely, well, they sound like they look superb, they sound superb.
And that Lola Aston in 7th place still, with the 009 car, its sister car, in 8th place still. So they are still lapping pretty decently, and in fact all the front runners now below 3:28, down to 3:23 lap times for the 1st place Peugeot and the 4th place Peugeot, and 3:23 as well last time around for Mike Rockenfeller in the 2nd place Audi. So battle is on still, and they are all pushing, well, I think you'd have to say in Audi's case, absolutely as hard as they can. In Peugeot's, we might have to wait and see until a Peugeot starts to have an Audi get close to it before we can really tell.
Yes, somebody said, or opined, I'm not sure whether it was true or not, but a decision had been taken to drive this race at the pace of the Audis just a little bit more, and that probably is the way it actually is working out as far as they're concerned, because it's quite clear that the lesson has already been learned, that you don't really want to get under the 320 into the 319s if you don't have to, and if you can bowl along at around about 323 and everybody else is doing 323 and a half, 324, well, that's quite enough. You don't need to do any more. And certainly the Manasian car is at the moment the only one that hasn't had a slightly longer stop, so all things that end well, just hope he's hanging on there.
Well, that's what they're going to have to hope for now. I mean, that's that Peugeot now have one egg in their basket. They absolutely have to hope that nothing happens to it, because Audi have had a problem on one of their 3 cars. Peugeot have had a problem on 3 of their 4 cars. In comes the number 2 car then. There is Nick Minassian. Looking really relaxed this weekend, I thought. He knows he's got a good car, he's part of a really good team, he clearly feels very firmly embedded in it, and after 11 24-hour tests, good lord, why wouldn't you? You spent an awful lot of time together, you've rehearsed this relentlessly. Of course, it is entirely different once you get into the race itself, but you're still doing what you do best. And Nick Minassian, he's always a relaxed, friendly guy, but he seems particularly on it this weekend, and particularly just really pleased to be here. Now, see the choreography here, different tyre men doing different jobs, one gun, Now the gunman throws the gun away and becomes a tireman on the other end, but you can only have 2 people working at any one time. So it is in, out, and all sorts of choreography. And that's the sort of stuff that you spend lunchtime after lunchtime after lunchtime practicing the factory, so you don't end up getting a drive-through. Now then, the Malaria No More Highcroft HPD is in, with Marco Werner at the wheel. And the Malaria No More charity, which is trying to reduce and hopefully eliminate particularly child mortality in malaria-stricken areas. A child dies every 30 seconds of malaria, and the charity is trying its hardest to help eradicate malaria. And for very small amounts of money, enormous steps forward can be taken in prevention of mosquito bites that cause malaria. Entire rear end change, if they can get that upper deck out of the way.
Yeah, seems to be taking very recalcitrant.
They've undone the Zeus fast as they want to, but it doesn't seem to be coming off. As he kicked the rear end on, it seemed to make the connections they wanted. Now, has he been called in because he didn't have lights, I wonder?
I would suspect, that's better.
It ain't a lot better.
Well, it is, because it's... Oh, we've got to sort of...
Got to get it up to get your head in, to get the quick connectors attached for everything to get it back on. And that, of course, is the second place car in LMP2, the Highcroft Racing Acura HPD. And Duncan Dayton, the Highcroft team boss, I spoke to him just before the race. He said, is it as good being here as a team boss as it is as a driver? Because he's raced here before in his own right as the boss of Highcroft. And he said, it is as good. It's a different good, but it is as good. And judging by the width of the cheese-eating grin he was sporting, I think it probably was as good as well. I don't think he was kidding there.
He's a great all-round competitor, because he does drive himself in historics and things like that, and he's a very competent driver and a darn good businessman and a likeable figure.
One of those guys that you really think, oh, I really don't think I should like him at all, because he's so successful and does all these different things, and you can't help but he is a
He's just got immense charm, hasn't he?
And actually has, he's the driver who's won more races at Monaco than any other in history.
Yeah.
He's now won 11 Monaco races, half of which have been in Formula 1 machinery. I think 5 in Formula 1 machinery, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, low tie.
I couldn't possibly go on.
Brabhams and things.
Yeah, things. Anyway. Looking at Audi number 15, 9th places. Positions overall have sort of settled for quite a while. We've now got 39 cars officially not abandoned. They are still working on the J-Lock Lamborghini. They are still working on Paul Drayson's car. They're still working on Jürgen Muller's BMW. And in fact, that looks as though it's starting to take more of a getting it back out onto the track sort of a shape, rather than getting it back into a sort of looking like a race car sort of shape. Out it comes, ready to stand it up and then drop it down once the trolley dollies have come out from underneath. Down he goes, fire it up, and off he's out. So Jürgen Muller leaves the pit lane. He is... Oh, he's lost... has he lost a place to Timo Scheider? No, I don't think he has. He's still in front of Miro Konopka, so 8th or 9th place. Can't count quite accurately at the moment in the GT2 class as he goes back out on track. And Charlie Lamb re-musters the troops there in the foreground. Welcome back to Le Mans, where the Kiefer ASM car is still stuck in the garage. Olivier Pla in the car. You can see a bit of limbering up there going on just before the 78 BMW headed back out on track. But Kiefer ASM's Ginetta Zytek still troubling its team rather. Hasn't lost any places yet. It was 5th in the LMP2 class. It still is. 6th place is 4 laps behind. And you see this little highlight reel, the BMW getting ready to be sent back out as the number 15 Audi received its regular service in 9th position. Through the night then in car number 2, Nick Minassian at the helm of the Peugeot. This is our race leader, Minassian, with a lap advantage over the best of the Audis, driven by Mike Rockenfeller and Andre Lotterer. They're about 37, 38, 39 seconds apart. And the leader a full lap ahead of them. Out of Armagh, public highway, flashing the lights at the GT car in front to get out of the way. And the closing speed will really start to pick up as the Peugeot really gets into its stride into the Porsche curves. Chasing another LMP2 car. Is that the 41 Team Laddie Radical? No, it's not. It's the number 6 Oreca AIM. That's why it's taking so long for the Peugeot to catch. The Oreca AIM on the last lap turned in a 3:32. The Peugeot just out of the pits after doing a 4:46 last time, so it's his first flying lap for the race leader, Nick Minassian. First to second.
He's getting a quick flash there because he really wants to come through.
At 36.7 seconds, it's still showing a lap on timing and scoring. And Nick Minassian setting a personal best second sector time on that last lap. Peugeot's Nick Minassian leading the race. Audi's Mike Rockenfeller in second place. Audi's Andre Lotterer in third spot. Vanina Hicks returns to the pit lane. She is ready for her next stint in 008, which Frank Mayer is driving at the moment. The Signature Plus, Lola Aston Martin, lying in 10th place at the moment. You'll see now, that's the problem with comfy chairs. You can tip your head back and before you know it, you're long gone in the Lavin Oz. It's the J-Lock Lamborghini. All sorts of work going on there. I mean, this is a fully comprehensive rebuild. Massive brakes, torque bars being used to torque the wheels on. Looks like they've been doing the tracking and all sorts of stuff. Full spring clean. Well, of our 36 rolling cars at the moment, only 2 are actually in the pits. We have 2 further cars being worked on in the pits, which are Paul Lord-Drayson's number 11 Lola Judd and the J-Lock Lamborghini, which you can see, which you did see, Olivier Pla now getting ready to go back out once more. Just done a very long and slow in-lap. Or I'm saying just, I don't mean just, that was on his way back in before he had the work done on the car. Looks like it's ready to go. Looks like the J-Lock Lambo is ready to go as well. Murcielago sitting on pit apron, everybody having a look around it, trying to decide whether or not it's right. And ready to go. That's Sushi Yogo. Heads back out on track after what looked like a good 12,000 mile service on that car. All sorts of bits and bobs being changed. Keith Layer's M car following him as well. So we are emptying the pits. No, darn it, we're not. Peter Cox is in the young driver Aston. Go on, shoo, get out, be gone. Then the only car that is shown as being on pit road is Paul Drayson's car. Now, if they could get the car going the next couple of minutes, we might end up for the first time almost since the beginning of the race with no cars in the pit lane at all.
Amazing. Not much sign of time, but I'm just looking out. There's a slight lightning in the sky away to my left. So we are getting to the stage where over the next 3/4 of an hour to an hour those last sort of few minutes of darkness will begin to erode, and we shall perhaps have still these lovely cool conditions. So it still should be reasonably quick. And as we've said, there's not an awful lot of Le Mans mist about that I can see at the moment. There's totally fair breeze out there on the flags, and that means that it's going to blow a lot of it away. And here we see the traffic still bunching up. We were saying this has been happening during the course of the night.
Well, there's Alexander Wurz, fresh out of the pit lane. Audi number 1 is in 4th place. 34 minutes and 1 second they've spent in the pit lane, compared to Andre Lotter in front, 19 minutes and 27 seconds. And our race leader, Nick Minassian, has spent, or that car, number 2, has spent 20 minutes and 19 seconds. So the other car 14 minutes longer in the pit lane. Olivier Canel, head of Peugeot Sport, started off with 4 cars at the front of the grid, 1, 2, 3, 4. Battle in the opening laps between the Oreca Peugeot and the number 7 Audi of Alain McNish was ferocious. Got split up by a fortuitous safety car, at least for Peugeot, which gave them a minute and a half advantage over the best Audis. And since then, the wheels have started to rather come off the Peugeot wagon. They've lost 1 car, 2 have been delayed. This is the most delayed of them all. This is in 6th place now. Olivier Panis at the wheel of Hugues de Schonag's Oreca run Peugeot. Next best Peugeot is 4th place, Alexander Wurz. And of course the best place Peugeot is our race leader, Nick Minassian. Our German colleague Norbert Ekenga there, getting the word from the horse's mouth. Having a chat with Hugues de Schonag. Just catching up on how the car has been going. And there, Neville, for the first time, lightning in the sky. Not lightning, but lightening.
Yes, white bar left there.
Yes, indeed, a little sort of mauvey coloured hue to it as the cars go over the brow. Of course, that's enhanced by the lights, by the camera rather. Iris wide open, just picking up a little bit more light than the naked eye does, particularly when you're squinting through half-closed lids, as probably most of you are, if you're even awake at all. Jan Magnussen on pit road in the 2nd place GT2 car. That is the number 63 Corvette. And regular service for him will be undertaken in just a moment. Or has rather been overtaken in just a moment. And it's handed over to Johnny O'Connell. So O'Connell has taken over the car and it has left. As I said, the pit lane was almost empty. Of course, people are starting to come in thick and fast now. Also on pit road is the number 77 Proton Felbermayr Proton Porsche, and that is driven by Richard Lietz at the moment. Lies in 3rd place in the GT2 class. You're not seeing that, as you see just a little clip of images recorded over the last hour or so. Grubby looking Oreca Peugeot receiving quick service last time in to keep it on the chase to try and get back up the order. Straka Racing Team here are LMP2 leaders. In fact, they now have a 2-lap advantage over Marco Werner, and more than that, they also have the number 6 Oreca behind them. They've jumped up into 11th place, courtesy of the pace that Johnny Kane has been showing in that Straka Racing HPD, the Cura chassis with the HPD engine. Marc Rostan, Pierre Bounot's car is on pit road. And that is receiving fairly straightforward service as well as one of the Astons, Hoons by 007. Car that lies with Stefan Mucker aboard in 7th place overall. There he is. 7th overall, 7th in class, because all the top 10 now only are LMP1s. They're not the only ones left. Andy Merrick is in 12th place, but in front of him is Johnny Kane in the LMP2 class. And a disappointing sight for Ford fans. That is the closed door of car number 60 and 61. So it looks like... When did that happen then? I missed that.
No, you didn't.
Romain Grosjean and the others.
He brought it in, and if you remember, they had a moment of indecision as to whether they would take it in the garage or take it out of the garage.
Oh my goodness.
And in the end they took it in because it wouldn't start, and obviously nothing else has happened to it, so the fickle finger of fate once more strikes out. And that's all of GT40, isn't it? The whole lot.
That is the third and final Ford GT, yes.
Very sad indeed. I mean, bearing in mind that those cars, in their original form, it took them, well, it was quite hilarious really, because they had a couple of years sort of learning all the things the wrong way, and then they succeeded in shifting a 7-litre engine into it and won it with that. And then they had the Mark IV and won it with that. And then, just when Ford had lost interest in the whole thing, back came John Wyer with the original and won it with that. And the following year, the very little changed Mirage did it all over again. So nothing was wrong with it in the first place. It was just a question, really, of developing the car and developing it properly. The Gurney Westlake head making an enormous difference. And the current engine in that car, of course, is a totally different cup of tea to the original.
Yes, probably does about 5 miles to the gallon as opposed to about 2.5 miles to the gallon for the original. So yeah, absolutely right. Some rather churlish cat has cleared off with my jacket. I'm starting to feel a little bit on the chilly side up here, which means that we are due for a dawn soon, I should think, and then I'll feel a little bit too warm. I say.
I don't think I have. That's your jacket, because I know I've got mine on.
No, that's not mine, because mine says Haven inside, just so that nobody
somebody else has nicked it and
nick it. Yeah. That's merely a large. Mine's has to be
yours an XXL like mine.
Yes.
Well, I took my long sleeve shirt off, and now I'm frozen to death as well, so that makes two of us.
It is a bit chilly up here, and I did bring a jacket just so I could keep myself warm, and somebody's cleared off with it just so I can't. So
Mark Cole, probably.
I could possibly say. But somebody who didn't ought to has gone home wearing a jacket. However, when the scurrilous swine return, then we'll be able to purloin it from them if I haven't frozen to death by that stage of the evening. Car number 9, second place car. This is the Audi Mike Rockenfeller shares with Timo Bernhardt and Romain Dumas. Dumas stepped out just under an hour ago, and
he's going to regret that, isn't he? He's taken the whole of the front of the visor off, so he's going to have to put another one on.
He's got one more there, so I'm not quite sure what he was adjusting or unadjusting, but he's certainly got a visor on as he heads off.
Mike Rockenfeller, for all the name that sounds American, he's not. And at 26 years of age is the youngest, I think, of the Audi drivers. Had the misfortune to chuck one at the scenery a couple of years ago, which nobody let him forget very easily. But as is the case with Audi, while they're not exactly, shall we say, pussycats, they can be quite forgiving people, and I think they've fully realised that these things can happen, and they did. And Rockenfeller remained within the fold and has acquitted himself very well.
Well, you see, after last year and this year, Audi have to admit that everybody can make an error of judgment, don't they?
Yes.
So, yeah, a driver making a mistake can cost you the race, but if an engineer or a particular car designer makes a big mistake and doesn't correct it properly, or doesn't own up to it, then that can cost you a lot of races.
Yeah, well, it's something you don't need to have happen.
Great view in the night, isn't it? Just mesmerisingly straight lines rushing up to the corner in Indianapolis. Johnny Kane stays in the Straka Racing Acura HPD. His drinks bottle being exchanged. car being fueled, and that's pretty much all she wrote. You'll get cleaner headlights. Well, no major dramas there. All the real drama at the pit stops. Joe Bradley from Radio Le Mans again in shot. The real drama from the pit stops really tends to happen when the tyre changes are involved as well. And there was no major tyre change there. So the Stracker Racing entry continues to lead from Marco Werner currently in the Highcroft car. Mathieu Lahaye for Oak Racing in third. Tommy Erdos in fourth for RML. A bit of a gap back from top four, which are vaguely similar to each other. No, top five, which are vaguely similar to each other. Between Olivier Pla and sixth place through Mojay is another 2 or 3 seconds. I beg your pardon. 2 or 3 laps. That's what I meant to say. And it looks as though 3 laps adrift, even taking into account fuel stops that will have and haven't been taken.
Looking down the times, we've got Manassian still basically the quickest in 323s. Neither of the 2 Audis at the moment pushing very hard. Dirt's in a 324. And Canello, I don't think that car is perhaps as happy as it might have been, because it doesn't seem to be making the impression they were hoping it would.
I think that's a very fair comment at the moment. Doesn't really seem to be down in the 324s, even remotely close enough to the ultimate time. So yes, possibly the delayed number 7 might have a little bit of a problem, or it's just set a very quick second sector time, so maybe he's just had some trouble with traffic. So I don't think Dindo and Allen will have given this one up as a dead loss just yet. Flurry of pit stops here at Le Mans as the number 7 Joest Audi goes back out. Dindo Capello staying at the wheel of that car, and it should remain in 5th position as well. Peugeot's Nicolas Minassian still leads from Audi's. Yeah, Rockefeller in second? Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Why?
No, Lotter.
Yeah, no.
Lotter
sorry,
second.
Andrew Lotter in second.
Yeah.
Mike Rockefeller in third.
Rockefeller's third.
Sorry.
Yeah.
8 and 9, and then in 4th place Alexander Wurz in car number 1, the reigning champion, 2/3 of the reigning champions from last year.
Bit difficult to tell at the moment what the weather's going to do. Sky seems pretty high, certainly where dawn is breaking, and you can see it doing so if you're here and looking up at it. But there does seem to be a bit of a choppy sky away to my right here, a bit darker, and I'm just wondering whether indeed this rain that we were told was going to happen is going to happen. As we were saying, the weather here is always a little bit difficult to predict. Sometimes they will say, well, it's going to rain on Friday, and it doesn't. It rains on Thursday, and then perhaps another time it's going to rain on Friday, it rains on Saturday. You can't really tell. You can't sit your watch by it. But here's the surviving Ginetta. You can see a wonderful array of buttons on the steering wheel, which confuse anybody, I would think, in this day and age, and somehow or other the skilled drivers of today's racing are a little less concerned about them perhaps than I would be. The Cytec Ginetta, then this is the car that is still, quite frankly, holding its own. It's in 19th place. Had its minor problems, but seemingly has solved most of them and is making its way steadily on. Still that little bit of breeze keeping the mist away, which often comes in from the trees, but it looks very clear out there, while once again further efforts to rebuild the Lola. It seems to be taking a very long time and not achieving a great deal. But I think perhaps the intention is to get it back into some semblance of order, and even if it doesn't finish the race, it lessens the work that's going to have to be done next time out. Doesn't actually look too far away from going out again. So we might have an opportunity in a moment to see whether that work has brought some sort of fruition. Ganassia, now 37 years old, has been around since the 90s, done a stint in Formula 3. Frank Montagni looked at one time, one of the other drivers in the team, as if he was going to get all the way to Formula 1, but it somehow didn't work out for him at the right time. So difficult to find the right seat at the right time that is competitive, and the same applying to 34 years old Stefan Salazar. But these three making a pretty formidable team, and they've had, as we've said, the best run here. They've only actually in the 18 stops that they had lost a total of 20 minutes and 19 seconds, which is one of the reasons why they're still in the lead when other people have been stationary in many cases for a good deal longer. The Alexander Wirtz car, for example, for 34 minutes, and the Olivier Panis car for 37. Ganassia now lapping in the 3:21.2 to Lochera's 3:25.1, and Rockenfeller's 3:25.6. So it's all sort of working its way out. That must be an indication that he has had a pit stop since Dino Capello's time is irrelevant at the moment. Back in, I think, in his second, so we will be getting some idea as to whether or not that car can increase its pace a little. But all the pressure really at the moment on the Peugeot, which has had the least of the problems that other cars have had. The sheen on the road, which almost looks damp, but not. The headlights sort of come towards us. OJ Cohn OJ with the 41 Zytek engine car, Ginetta. And the traffic lining up. We get the bulletin come through, the 14-hour bulletin. Still a very long way to go in this contest, and as we said, while not a fascinating wheel-to-wheel battle, it's certainly a battle of absolute determination, and this feeling that we had creeping in a couple of hours or so ago that perhaps there might be just a chance to force the issue a little bit more. But as yet, there has been no further crack in the Peugeot armour. Flat beat of the big Corvettes. I'm quite taken by the flash of flame as they go past the pits on every time they come past us. If you look down on them from up in the box here, you'll see that flash as just a almost minute break in the revs. .321.4 for Ganassia. Showing a clear 2-lap lead on Lochera. Rockefeller almost in touch now with Lotterer's car. We could indeed, I suppose, to see some sort of change there. It is possible. Alexander Wirtz with the #1 Peugeot. Well, that car seems to have picked up its pace a little bit, having had a slow lap or two. Meanwhile, the return of Martin with a very, very welcome glass of water.
Yes, doing our own catering now. The J-Lock Lamborghini has vacated its pit garage and has added more laps to its tally. It's now done 120 to the leader's 238, but nonetheless, it is still chuntering and may yet end up as a car which has finished Le Mans, much against everybody's expectations. From Montagny, who is the third driver of car number 2, with Nicolas Menassion, who's currently at the wheel, and Stéphane Sarrazin. Montagny looking possibly a little bit fresher than you and I, Nev, but then
yes, he does look fresh, doesn't he? I thought that.
Had food, drink, sleep, or a massage, all of which he has enjoyed. Into the garage, into the pit stand comes car number 8. André Lotterer bails out.
I've had the drink. I wouldn't mind some food, but the massage I would find very, very appealing right now.
I think right now if I had a massage, I'd be asleep within 10 seconds. So André Lotterer bails out then. Car number 8 he shares with Marcel Festa and Benoit Treloyer, and it is Treloyer who goes back in. How come everybody who gets into the car is shown as Japanese? What is that? A white square with a red dot on, apart from a Japanese flag. They seem to be showing that as everybody's nationality when they get into an Audi.
Do you think they have a tax system that's more suitable?
I don't know. I don't know. That's very strange. I'll have to look more closely the next time. Well, hang on a minute. Some double fumblage going on there. Now, you see, if you get out of whack, you end up with more people doing things than are allowed. You are allowed 2 people beyond the line to work on the car. 1 air gun. I'm not actually sure that man on the rear jack should be doing things with tyres, but possibly I shouldn't be saying that, since there are judges of facts who obviously know the rules far better than me. They'll be able to judge that. Although hopefully not the one at pit exit who doesn't know the rules at all there. So we must... It's garage emptying time. Obviously the bin men are coming round or something today, because our final garage occupant has been persuaded to leave its nice warm abode. Paul Drayson's Lola Judd has been pushed out onto the apron, and it is illuminated. Not quite like the Blackpool illuminations, but like a proper racing car. It is clean and shiny and bright, and they're putting wheels and tyres on it. Nev, I do believe they have persuaded the recalcitrant little object to leave the garage and its safety. It's rather like Edward, the train that drove into the tunnel because he didn't want to get his paint wet in the rain.
Yes. Oh, you suffered from that same one, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have a grandson I have to read it to.
It's a great story. Once there was a train who was afraid of a few drops of rain. Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly what the engineers and the PR people will tell us about Paul Drayson's car. I'd love to get down and have a quick word with Dale White, actually, but I can't. I may just take a moment to rather professionally send a text to Tom Moore and see if he can let us know what's going on. By the way, you'll be glad to know that your son did have to pay for drinks in the pub, no matter how many mentions they got, because obviously a mention from me isn't worth a hill of beans, never mind a pint of beer.
Serve them right, and serve him right, that's what I say.
Absolutely so.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going off mic for a moment while I text, so I don't say anything silly.
Right, so we look down on what's going on. Yeah, we look at what's going on here with the car that Vanina X is just about to take over. And talking with Jackie briefly yesterday, I lie about that. It wasn't. It was on Thursday. He was saying that she really has taken to long-distance racing again, and at times are competitive, and in fact she's become an extremely competent young lady, carrying, of course, that name that is so famous that goes back to her great-grandfather, who was right at the very outset of motorsport, one of the drivers of the past who made history. Car fired up, back in. And the mechanic's beginning to vent the hose. We'll often sort of wonder what they're doing there. What actually doing is taking the excess out of the fumes out of the hose, which makes life an awful lot easier and makes the whole thing an awful lot safer. And you say there's a fireman right by should they get a blowback or anything like that. Well, here's the car that we've been waiting to see go out. The Drayson car, which really has spent a very long time sitting there. Whether or not it was decided by the driver to stay there, does that pull the wheel? It could well be. Probably having a quiet doze actually in the car most of the evening. But no, they're seriously putting the thing back together again. They've done an awful lot of rebuilding on it, and it is going to return, and it is going to be a finisher. And it's an enormously, perhaps, rewarding things for the guys who have been working on it, that they are going to try and get it to the finish, because they really have had nothing but problems from the word go.
No, I agree, absolutely. It was indeed Paul Drayson who was at wheel. Johnny Cocker brought it in, gosh, short of an actual time
4 hours
period,
ago.
I'm going to say quite some while ago, yeah, quite some while ago. And they it does sort of look like a ground-up restoration has been undertaken on that car, but see if Tom is still awake and can tell us. And I think Dale White's got other things to do, so I won't bother him just at the moment, at least until the car is gone. But if Tom Moore gets back to us, then their PR guy, then hopefully we'll figure out exactly what was going on with the car.
Work going on the other Aston there, the Golf Aston, screen being cleaned, scheduled stop, no dramas as far as we could see.
All done, all gone. We are waiting for a Ferrari for a pit stop, and that'll be the number 95 car, Tony Vilander. Vilander shares with Giancarlo Fisichella and John Alesi. That is the sole AF Corsa car, and as you can see now from the camera, the roseate fingers of dawn are stretching across the sky. Whoa, and a big lock up there from the Racing Box Porsche. Racing Box, why do I keep calling it Racing Box? Goodness me. The BSM Scuderia Italia Porsche. Stop doing that, Martin, the fool. That's the 97 car with Timo Scheider at the wheel. Perhaps just slightly distracted by the Audi coming up behind him as he whistles down towards Indianapolis. And how quick is that? That is very fast indeed. Be back with you in just a second with more on Drayson.
You rejoin us here at Le Mans as the leading car, having had a scheduled stop, pulls out of the pits back into the race, and no question that there is perhaps just that little bit of regret on the faces of one or two of the tired but still determined Audi personnel who saw that just as a pure scheduled stop and back into the race with no time lost whatsoever. Not so, however, as far as this version is concerned. The number 1 car, Alexander Wurz, with some work going on, not quite sure what there. It's something inside the cockpit. We've seen this before. It seems to give great pleasure to the mechanic concerned, but now making sure that the doors are closed.
Driver change. He was leaning in to do up the belts for Marc Gené, who we saw pitting on the pit wall, sitting on the pit wall. Well said.
That
could have gone a lot worse. Andy Blackmore in the background there on the right with a camera for spotters of Spotter Guides. He is your guru. Also, for those of you who enjoy playing racing simulation games, particularly by EA Sports, he has an awful lot to do with how fabulous they look. And here at Le Mans, leaving his hometown of Vancouver to come over here to do a lot of research. So hopefully we might be seeing some new sports car racing software coming out, maybe a new game. I have no other ideas other than that's what he does, and he happens to be here. So those of you who are sitting at home with your Spotter Guides from spotterguides.com, or from somebody else who's pretended it's their own work but it isn't, Andy Blackmore, the man in the background there, was single-handedly responsible for preparing it, with support from Nissan 370Z, Radio Mon and all the others. Nonetheless, that was Martinet getting into car number 1 in 4th place, and he's the man who gets really the first proper daylight stint, because, well, Neville, look under the bin bags and out of the window. What a beautiful sky. Oh, yes, you are. Yep. You are sitting down. What a beautiful sky it is. It is a beautiful dawn. However, red sky at night, Shepherd's Delight, that didn't work on Friday night because it hissed it down all night and was miserable in the morning on Saturday.
Red sky in the morning, Shepherd's warning.
Well,
there you have it.
Obviously it's what's it about face here in France, so hopefully that means it'll be a nice day for the rest of the day.
Notice, in fact, and probably you did just on picture, those of you who are looking carefully, that Genet is actually wearing spectacles, and I think they are spectacles,
yes,
because his visor is up.
Yep.
It's quite interesting that over the years there are a number of drivers who have not had the perfect eyesight that was reckoned by many to be the absolute essential for success in Grand Prix racing and in long-distance sports car racing et al. Like the Mille Miglia. And because, of course, those races are no longer part of the calendar, it isn't so 100% important as it used to be, but there have been a lot of drivers who have had worn glasses.
Can't imagine that not being able to see where you're going is much of a help in a car like, like this lead Peugeot, but if you need glasses to see, the good thing about a full-face helmet is that you can fit them on, whereas under Mark 9 goggles, it's very hard indeed to fit glasses on because the goggles fit into your face. So certainly in the 40s, 50s, 30s, when they were wearing goggles to protect their eyes from mud, stones, grits and all the other muck that came up off wheels, glasses would be a distinct hindrance.
They used to wear lens goggles.
Very quickly. Well, there you go. So you wouldn't have seen them wearing glasses.
Yeah, they used to wear lens goggles. And then in the early days of visors, very often a driver who wore glasses, like Bira, for example, was very short-sighted, used to wear his glasses under his visor. But of course the problem with that is that sometimes the visor would mix up, the glasses would mix up, and the whole thing was a total disaster. But a lot of drivers did actually wear lens goggles. Among the other drivers who used to drive regularly with spectacles was the great Bob Gerrard, one of the finest of the British drivers in the immediate post-war years. And it didn't seem to impede him in any way, shape or form as a Grand Prix driver or as a road racing driver in those days when there were more road races than there are circuit races, which is of course the state today.
Looking at the young drivers, Aston Martin, young drivers AMR, Aston Martin Racing, of course, the Aston Martin DBR9, which is currently lying third in the GT1 class, as they have overhauled the now retired Maytech Ford. There are five GT1 cars remaining, the fifth and last of which by less than 70 laps, actually 68 laps is the just 68 laps behind is the Lamborghini Murcielago with Hirovuki Iri at the wheel at the moment. Try saying that twice. The leader in the GT1 class is now Gabriel Gardel at the wheel of the Celine, which is still just one lap ahead of Xavier Masson in the Corvette. Xavier Masson seems to be doing about a 6-hour shift in that Corvette. Rather than a stint, he's actually doing an entire night shift, 10 till 6 or something. So some bullish work going on there, but that's the GT1 class. Right, now then, courtesy of my good friend Tom Moore, let me take you through the tales of woe of the Drayson team. Paul Drayson, as we saw, was in the car and all getting ready to go, and hopefully will still be able to go. Major overhaul on the car because it started picking up a misfire and then came creeping in with fuel starvation, and in the end a failed pipe inside the fuel cell, which in itself is inside the monocoque of the car, was traced as the culprit. That has been fixed. A broken damper was also found at the front of the car. That has been replaced. They believe that caused the handling problems and the vibration and the issues at the rear that caused the spring packers to break up as well, all of which have been sort of ongoing. And they have now, well, the Drayson car did look to be all in one piece. They wheeled it back out. And the only reason I can think of for them wheeling it back into the garage is that it was not starting on the button. So more issues than an issue-laden issue of the big issue, I would have thought.
I think that rather succinctly put to bed what has been perhaps one of the huge efforts, and so sadly unrewarded huge efforts,
well, so far,
on the night.
If it had left the pit lane, that would have put it to bed, but since the wretched thing is still in there, defying all attempts by man and hammer to get it going, then I'm afraid that hasn't quite ended the story yet. It is the only car on pit road. It is the only car in a garage which is not yet an official retirement. And this is any of our 56 entries, 55 cars that rolled off at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. We still have 39 running, and at 10 hours in we had only we still had 44, so we'd lost 11 in 10 hours, and now with only 9 hours to go we've still got 39 left, assuming that the Drayson car does ever decide to run again. To be honest, starting with a box of bits and an IKEA drawing might have been a better way of going about their race, because the car has clearly demanded being reduced to its components, even though that's what happened to it on Friday. It was stripped to the core and rebuilt. It now is insisting on another strip to the core and rebuild. It clearly likes it.
Yeah, you must have some extremely tired mechanics there who really have put in to no reward whatsoever the efforts that they have, and it is very sad, and I do feel for them, and I hope that you folks who are sitting comfortably trying to prop your eyes open at home accept that these guys probably have had a dreadful time over the last 2 or 3 days, because just nothing has gone right for that team, and it is a shame, because it's been a tremendous effort, and Le Mans could have been a big success story for them.
Yes, they had well, certainly compared to the race, relatively untroubled practice and qualifying period. 2 Corvettes in, again nose to tail, and again very hard to tell at a casual view, apart from the colour, which is the GT2 and which is the GT1 car. And the answer, of course, is the GT2 leader has just left, with Oliver Gavin having handed the car over. And I think that probably means to Olivier Beretta. We'll check on that in a moment. The other car that was in the pit lane, the other Corvette, was David Hart in the 72 Alfa Venture Corvette in the GT1 class, which is 4th in GT1. The sister car is 2nd in GT1. Lost wheel nut, and that is going to slow down the change on that right front of the Highcroft car. No, he had another one in his wheel gun.
Great overhead shot, that, wasn't it? Really a great overhead shot of that car.
Very funky overhead shot indeed. Yeah. In fact, actually, if you go and Google, Highcroft had a camera on their car going through scrutineering. They'd done a sort of super fast forward trip in 4 minutes or something through the whole of the morning scrutineering process, which is jolly worth the watch. Car number 39 is reported as being in a gravel trap. That's the KSM Crucial Motorsport Lola Judd. Yeah, open car is in the gravel trap somewhere, and if I can find it on the timing screen, dear oh Lord, everything looks the same when you're tired. Hideki Noda is the driver of that car at the moment. although presumably not doing very much driving. Post 96, I'm saying that's between Arnage and Indianapolis. Oh, it is, it's the slow left at Indianapolis. I knew that number somewhere. There are some posts that you never hear from, some that you hear from quite a lot. 96 is one of them, 106 is one of them as well. That's where a lot of the British marshals are down at the introduction to the S's. Highcroft car running a long way offline there onto the straight to allow the faster P1 class car to go by. Plugging in drinks and radio there into the same little block. That's a nice little bit of thinking there by the Felgenmeier Proton Porsche team. This is their 88 car. Miro Konopka was in it, and they're gluing the lights back in. That'll be no more nails, or the motor racing mechanics equivalent, which presumably is no more hammers. Because nobody ever fixed anything with a nail on the car, but the hammer's been used in many suitable occurrences.
Known as a Birmingham spanner in the trade.
The Birmingham screwdriver, yes indeed. Well, as I always say, if you can't fix it with a hammer, it really is broken. There's the fabulous new ACO's welcome building. There's the funfair now moved from the outside of the S's down to the outside of the Porsche curves and Ford chicane.
I walked up there yesterday to the welcome building, for those of you who are not here this year, and I went to the old one.
You walked up there for them?
No. I'm just about to tell these folks who haven't seen it what a wonderful building it is, and what a long and heavy set of stairs there are, that when you've got to it, you think to yourself, was it worth it, and do I feel like anything, or shall I wait and have the heart attack now?
That happens when you get to the top and you find out that the gate that's been open all day is now locked.
Yes, we've also had a bit of that over the course of the weekend.
And you have to go all the way back down 3 stories of steps, spend 10 minutes faffing around trying to secretly go up in their service elevator, which doesn't seem to be working, and then tramp all the way through the tyre paddock, round the top of the village and back down again.
A bit like when we brought the passes to you, actually, on the other day.
Arriving rather sweaty and grumpily, complaining about why have they closed gates that didn't ought to be closed. But, you know.
Very odd.
They do because they can, of course, and that's one of the joys and delights of it. Very pop-mark screen on car number 4. That's been shot blasted a little bit. Mechanic gets in with some double buffage action there. Trying to give a new screen as Olivier Panis gets out and stalks away rather disconsolately from the car. Body language hardly saying I'm having a lovely time, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, he didn't seem to enjoy that stint very much at all.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, quite frankly, as quick in the car as it has been driven.
I think he's doing a pretty decent job, but on the other hand, he obviously is still feeling, well, I'm making no impression. And that's kind of part of the deal as well. You know, if you are driving your heart out and you are making an impression on the cars in front, then that's one thing. If you're driving your little socks off and you're making no impression at all, then actually that really doesn't feel half as good, I'm sure. Away goes the Persian. No hint of wheel spin. They're not allowed to spin their wheels. Drive-through penalties for wheel spin this year.
£1,000? No, $10,000 wasn't it? Australia.
No. That's, this is significantly more. Incidentally, those of you who didn't watch, Jenson Button qualifying on pole in the Canadian Grand Prix. Car then ran out of fuel on the in-lap. Jenson proceeded to start to push it. Relatively quickly gave up that idea because actually it's not that easy to do. However, he was fined $10,000 for his pains, which, bearing in mind that we all sort of thought that the cars were supposed to have enough fuel left at the end of the session for a fuel sample, and couldn't they easily have been cheating and all of that stuff, the team seemed to think was a remarkably light get-off for somebody who was in what possibly was a major infringement of the rules, and particularly given the fact that he was on pole position. So
I was going to say I couldn't understand any of that until you sort of basically unfolded the full newspaper.
Yeah, well, I like to understand.
It has supposed to start on the fuel that's left in the tank, having put in the time, correct?
Indeed.
So if there was no fuel in the tank in the first place, how could it possibly have started?
No, it had fuel in the tank, but it's supposed to have a certain amount left at the end for sampling. Now, in some forms of motorsport, it's 3 litres. In, I don't know what it is in Formula 1, because I'm not entirely sure I could care less. but it didn't have any left for sampling. In fact, it didn't even have any left for getting back to the pits. So therefore, it was clearly in breach of a regulation. And since you stuck the car on pole position for a Grand Prix, and you can't sufficiently fulfil the regulations for post-scrutineering, surely you should have lost your time at the very least and been thrown to the back of the grid at the very worst.
Well, he must have been thrown to the back of the grid because he's not in pole position, is he? It's Hamilton in pole position.
That's what I said, Hamilton.
Oh, I beg your pardon, I think you said Jenson Button.
Maybe I did. I meant Hamilton. I knew I meant Hamilton. I knew my mouth was saying Hamilton. If it came out as Button, then I do apologise. It was Hamilton. Anyway, I'm going to have to get back to Tom Moore now because the car still hasn't left. But he said this fix does feel slightly longer than the original 12-day build of the car last autumn. So the Drayson Lola Judd still being obstreperous. Hideki Noda is in his number 39 car after going very slowly into the gravel or somewhere else. So 2 cars on pit road. They've been joined briefly by Andy Merrick in the number 6 Orica AIM. That is in for regular service and will depart in a minute or two as we ride on board into the increasing daylight in car number 2, the race leader. Here's the Orica AIM. Excuse me, Andy Merrick with his plain black carbon helmet. Still hasn't, so new, he still hasn't had a chance to have it painted. Either that or he just wants it plain black in carbon, not quite sure which. Haven't had a chance to catch up with him. Of course, last year he was here with the Collis team and spent quite a lot of time chatting to us because he was their reserve driver but hadn't qualified and so could not take over when Narain Karthikeyan dislocated his shoulder jumping over the pit wall on race day morning from the grid. So Andy Merrick here potentially to help out. Then the case arrived to help out and he wasn't able to. This year though he's actually got a driving drive and as a result we haven't heard one from him, I'm afraid. Still good to see him in the drive rather than sitting alongside us trying to keep us entertained. 5:57 CET coming up to 5 o'clock in the UK. We'll be back in just a moment at Le Mans.